My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hi. Sorry, did I startle you? When you're used to hearing a certain type of commercial, something like this can, well, take you by surprise. That's kind of how it is with the Lexus RX, a vehicle that has continued to defy expectations for over 25 years. From the first luxury vehicle of its kind, to the first hybrid luxury vehicle, to the only plug-in hybrid worthy of the RX name. We understand you want more than the everyday SUV. And isn't being understood an amazing feeling? Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
The following is a presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for high school sports. This is Scoreboard Saturday on News Radio KMAN.
Okay, CBS, I see what you're going to do there. You're going to cut off early. Get me caught off guard while I was trying to get everything finished up here, but it is what it is. We're getting started just a few seconds early here on Scoreboard Saturday. And I tell you, in comparison to last week where we had all this rain and all these delays and even a couple of postponements and games pushed back, boy, we had a beautiful night for games last night. And we're going to get some beautiful weather across the Flint Hills over the next few days. In fact, the lowest high is going to be 70 on Tuesday. So we got beautiful weather in the forecast. And we have a big day of sports for you here on News Radio KMAN. First Scoreboard Saturday, then in the next hour we get you started with K-State pregame coverage. K-State taking on the Pokes. PowerCat game day starting at 7 with network coverage beginning at 9 and kickoff about 7 minutes past the top of the 11 o'clock hour as K-State and the Pokes do battle from Bill Snyder Family Stadium, a top 25 matchup. K-State ranked 20th and Oklahoma State ranked 21st. Welcome to Scoreboard Saturday here on News Radio KMAN. I am AJ Shaw. Of course, our show is always brought to you by the great folks at WTC Communications. WTC keeping you connected with the fastest fiber network internet speeds. Get your home or business in the game online at WTCKS.com. That's WTCKS.com. We'll get you started here on this Saturday morning, this very early Saturday morning, with the Manhattan Indians, who come into this game off a thrilling win last week in Hayes, America. They take on a longtime Centennial League rival, the Junction City Blue Jays. And Junction City was coming off a big win of their own last week in Week 3 of the season on the road at Wichita Northwest. All right, I apologize. Lost last week at Junction City, 43-30. That's my apologies, folks. So they come in 1-2 on the season, looking to bounce back against Manhattan following back-to-back very tough losses. Of course, they lost 2 weeks ago to Lawrence at home in a shootout, 69-56, and Wichita Northwest 43-30, and looking to bounce back last night in the battle for the Silver Trophy. Manhattan had won the last 3 matchups. Could they make it 4? Mitch Fortner, did they do it?
Last night, the battle for the Silver Trophy was once again on the line with the Manhattan Indians coming in with a perfect 3-0 record, taking on the Junction City Blue Jays. It started with a Manhattan safety. It almost ended with another safety. The defense with 2 on the night, but the Indians blow out Junction City, the first shutout of the Blue Jays since 1995. Final score, 52-0. Mitch Fortner with Cole Dutchendorf. Cole, those numbers were definitely one-sided last night.
Yeah, it was complete and utter domination, offensively, defensively, and special teams for Manhattan. On the ground, as a team, 46 carries for 295 yards. We'll break that down a little bit further. Kamario Davis, he had 13 carries for 63 yards and 1 touchdown. Carter Aslan had 13 carries for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Jaden Hudley had 16 carries for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's now 2 consecutive years where Aslan and Hudley both got into the end zone twice against Junction City. Through the air, Aslan was 8 for 12 for 96 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. J.J. Dunnigan had 3 catches for 27 yards. Rylan Vikander had 1 catch for 24 yards. and then 4 other Manhattan Indians had 1 catch, including Camario Davis, who had 1 catch for 13 yards and a touchdown. So total yards for Manhattan, 391, with 295 of those coming on the ground. And for Junction City, they didn't get much going through the air or on the ground. On the ground, they had 17 rushes for 35 yards. The bulk of that was from Justice Vinotti. He had 12 carries for 22 yards. And then through the air, Conrado Gomez was 2 for 12 for 22 yards and 2 picks. It was the Manhattan defense who really put their stamp on this game from opening kick to the final whistle. And they had 57 total yards, the Blue Jays did. So Manhattan had 391 total yards, and Junction City 57. 334 is the difference in total yards there tonight, or last night.
And Manhattan's defense had Conrad Gomez running all over the field with bringing that pressure. Again, the 2 interceptions, a pick 6 for J.J. Dunnigan. That's his first 2 interceptions of the season. All around a phenomenal performance by Manhattan High to get to 4-0. The Silver Trophy remains at Manhattan High School. 4 straight wins over Junction City. But coming up next for Manhattan, they take their perfect record back home to Bishop Stadium to host the Emporia Spartans for a 7 o'clock kickoff, and that means pregame coverage this Friday is at 6:30. Manhattan stomps Junction City on the Blue Jays' homecoming and on their home field by the final score of 52-0. For Cole Dutchendorf, I'm Mitch Fortner for Scoreboard Saturday.
So, yeah, Manhattan now 4-0 on the season. And as Mitch mentioned, they will now head back home to take on Centennial League rival Emporia next week, followed by a big matchup with Wichita Northwest the following week. Topeka High on the road will be the final road game of the season, and then they'll wrap up the year against the Junior Blues of Washburn Rural on the 25th to wrap up the regular season. But, hey, Manhattan's doing what they have to do early on. This team was a favorite early in the year in 6A to really make some noise. Of course, state champs 2 years ago. Definitely have a little bit of a bitter taste in their mouth after that loss to Derby in the playoffs last year. So 4-0 to start the season for the number 3 ranked Manhattan Indians in 6A. And, of course, we'll take a look at those rankings a little bit later on in the program. After the game, Toby Hamas from the Mercury and Mitch had an opportunity to talk with the winning coach, Joe Schartz.
Start you off, come into a hostile environment, rivalry game, and just completely dominate start to finish. Can you take me through just what you saw and what allowed for the dominant performance?
Well, got off to a hot start. The defense played lights out and get that safety to start things off, and ended up with 2 safeties and completely shut them down. That's an offense that fewest points they scored in any game is 30, and then it scored 56, 55. So to put up a 0 against them was pretty special.
Knowing last week in Hayes, you couldn't really run the offense exactly how you wanted to, had to air it out a little more. Today you get to run the ball like you prefer. How'd that play out today?
Well, we needed to run the football. I think we were a little embarrassed and upset about how we played last week. And the kids, went to work and we went to work, and we came in here with the mindset that we were going to run the football, and we did a heck of a job of it.
And JJ, even when he's on defense, he's like a receiver out there. How big of a performance was that?
Yeah, 2 interceptions, 1 for a pick 6, and he's dynamic in all phases of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. And it was clear sailing once he got it. Nobody was going to catch him.
With the running game, I specifically want to ask about Jaden. He was running hard, and that's of course credit to the offensive line, but I felt like that was one of Jaden's best games ever of running the football. How good was he today?
Well, we just went to work, and it's all about mindset. We cleaned some things up front and asked our running backs to run harder, and Jaden ran hard, and Camario ran hard. Camario had a good game as well. So, we're coming, multi-dimensional. We're getting everything going, and that makes us even more dangerous.
Oh, how many times I had mentioned on the broadcast about, Gomez, he's scrambling. Colby, him and Dobson and a number of other guys just had him running for his life all night.
Linebackers did a nice job, and the coaches did a great job with the blitz package and keeping him contained. And you're right, Colby and Landon did a real nice job of pressuring him. We even put in a presser package with JJ. We sent JJ a couple times and to get in there, and those guys showed great speed and the ability to keep him in the pocket and sack him.
Going back to that first safety, how were you feeling about how the game started? Because you started with the ball, you got a first down, but you ended up punting. That did, of course, lead to the safety.
Yeah, that first drive stalled out. The Junction City got some penetration, on our run play and stopped us, and so it just stalled out at midfield, and we had to punt. And for our defense to go out there and go ahead and start the scoring with that safety was very beneficial.
Is that one of the more fun celebrations you have every year when you beat Junction City for two reasons? One, the presentation on the field, and two, probably the celebration in the locker room is almost just as fun as maybe what you had last week at Hayes.
It means a lot to win the silver trophy, and these kids deserved it. They worked hard, and it was a fun time for sure.
All right, Coach, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, of course, to Mitch Fortner and the great Toby Hamas, or as I like to call him, Tobias Hamas from the Manhattan Mercury for that. Again, Manhattan 4-0. They win at 52-0 over Junction City, and the Silver Trophy is indeed coming back here to the Little Apple for the fourth consecutive season. It's always a great rivalry between those two, but Manhattan's really had Junction City's number the last few seasons. So the Blue Jays now 1-3. Manhattan is 4-0. We spoke about Topeka High a little bit earlier on in the program, and how about the Trojans? 4-0 is Jason Philbeck's team right out of the gate this year. They were able to down Centennial League opponent Emporia last night by a final of 47-14. So Topeka High 4-0, and of course, that'll be a big game a few weeks from now on the 18th of October when they take on Manhattan at Hummer Sports Park in Topeka. If you recall last year when Manhattan went to Topeka to take on the Trojans, it was definitely not a great evening for Topeka High. In fact, if you remember, the Trojans 1-8 last year. Fired head coach Carlos Kelly. They bring in Jason Philbeck, and they have been the story of the early season in the Centennial League as they sit at 4-0 overall on the season, 4-0 in district play, and 1-0 in Centennial League play. And they've really dominated their opponents. Their closest victory was, just give me a second here, 13 points over Wichita Heights in week 2. Washburn Rural, on the other hand, they're not playing great. The Junior Blues, who won the Centennial League last year, not looking very good. They won their first game over Shawnee Heights, but they've dropped 3 in a row. They lost to Blue Valley Northwest last night, 49-23, and they have a tough challenge next week as they got to get on the road to play Topeka High. They'll play, of course, Manhattan on the road to wrap up the regular season on the 25th of October. We'll get to Topeka Hayden in just a bit because, of course, that was our area game of the week last night when they took on Wamego, and we'll hear from Troy Coverdale and head coach Weston Moody on that ball game. But safe to say right now, the top of the Centennial League is Manhattan and Topeka High. And that game on the 18th could determine who wins the Centennial League. Coming up next, we'll dive into the NCKL and, of course, our area game of the week between Wamego and Topeka Hayden. Troy Coverdale will have a wrap for us on that one. Did Wamego upset one of the best teams in the state? We'll see about that after these words on News Radio KMAN Scoreboard Saturday, brought to you by WTC Communications.
WTC Fiber Internet is coming to all of Manhattan, bringing you blazing fast, reliable internet from your local provider. No contracts, no overage fees, and no installation costs.
Hi. Sorry, did I startle you? When you're used to hearing a certain type of commercial, something like this can, well, take you by surprise. That's kind of how it is with the Lexus RX, a vehicle that has continued to defy expectations for over 25 years. From the first luxury vehicle of its kind, to the first hybrid luxury vehicle, to the only plug-in hybrid worthy of the RX name. We understand you want more than the everyday SUV. And isn't being understood an amazing feeling? Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
This episode is brought to you by Buffalo Trace Distillery. Powerful yet smooth. Contained but never tame. Proudly going their own way, but never going alone. This is the spirit inside Buffalo Trace Bourbon. Made at Buffalo Trace Distillery, the world's most award-winning distillery. Buffalo Trace is always perfectly untamed. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, Franklin County, Kentucky. 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume. Learn more at buffalotracedistillery.com. Please drink responsibly.
We continue here on this Saturday morning, early Saturday morning. K-State football, of course, coming up in just a few hours from now between Oklahoma State. Scoreboard Saturday here on News Radio KMAN. AJ Shaw with you here. We dove through the Centennial League in our last segment. Of course, if you miss any of the show and you want to listen back to it, go check out our podcast, Scoreboard Saturday on News Radio KMAN. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button and you'll never miss an episode. We usually get these up right after the show comes to a conclusion. Oh, Paul's waving to me outside, our IT guy. So good to see him early in the morning. Was not expecting to see Paul early. So good morning, Paul. Hope you're having a great start to your Saturday, man. And hopefully Oklahoma loses later. He's more of a K-State guy, though, folks. All right, then. Speaking of the NCKL, how about Wamego last night taking on Topeka Hayden? A very tough matchup for them, particularly after losing that tough ball game at Marysville. And if you remember our conversation with Weston Moody last week, he said, we got to play better. We got to fix a lot of things with this football team, especially after that loss to Marysville. Did they do it last night against Topeka Hayden? Well, Troy, did they?
AJ, it was quite the comeback on the night as Hayden had built to a 2-touchdown advantage late in the third period following a Wamego turnover. 28-14, and all of the momentum was on the side of Hayden as Wamego was trying to figure out just where they were at that point and if they had enough juice following last week's 2-point loss because of turnovers at Marysville. But they got things going, predominantly on the legs of Tate Warren. But they were helped out all the way down the final stretch of the night with great running by Warren and a key play here and there that kept drives alive to put them into position for what would become a 17-point comeback. And they win over Hayden by the final of 31-28. Warren was our Manhattan record player of the game. He finished the night with 3 touchdowns, but the last 2 drives specifically were done on his legs. The first that put this ball game at even with 4:56 remaining. A 7-play, 49-yard drive. All 49 yards were his as he carried the football, capped it with the 12-yard run. The PAT from Brody Graber would tie it. He then would put his team back in position following a Hayden possession that ends near midfield with a fumble. The Red Raiders with the recovery, able to put themselves in position again behind Warren's running, get inside of the 10-yard line, nearly lose the ball on an errant snap. With 7 seconds remaining, they get a field goal from Brody Graber from 22 yards out to finish off the night and win it by that 3-point margin. Hayden's last touchdown in the game, following the turnover by the Red Raiders, came one play following an interception. Wallmeyer hitting Jackson from 40 yards out. That was with 3:12 remaining. They would only manage fewer than 10 offensive snaps the rest of the way before that field goal try. They then got a couple of late tries to make something happen, including a hook and ladder on the final play, but it all goes for naught as Wamego completes the rally, gets the win, moves to 3-1, and deals a loss to the number 1 team in 3A this evening by the final of 31-28. I'm Troy Coverdale for Scoreboard Saturday.
And thank you very much, Troy, as Wamego gets it done. An upset win over one of the best teams in the state in the Topeka Hayden Wildcats. Bill Arnold's team coming in unbeaten and playing some real good football. They beat Bishop Ward the previous week 62-8, followed by 42-14 and 35-7 wins. But Wamego in a test, and I remember asking Coach Moody about it a couple weeks ago, and what was a test, gets it done. And Topeka Hayden, who lost to Cheney last year in the state title game, went 12-1, get down by a Wamego team. And we've been saying it really since the first show of the new season, has been driven to try and avenge the way the last 2 seasons end, losing in the state title game 2 years ago, losing in the state semifinal a year ago. They want to take home a state title in 2024. Weston Moody with Troy after the ball game.
Down by 2 touchdowns. And I'm going to speed forward here just to the end of the game because you see at the end of the game, Hayden's guy is demoralized because you've taken the win from them. How did you keep your guys from falling into that trap down by 2 touchdowns in the third quarter?
Well, we had some seniors step up, Jackson Toops being one of them. If nobody knows who that guy is, tonight they will, for sure. He made some big-time plays. Defense got some stops when we needed to late. Tate Warren's another guy that just kind of took the ball and said, I'm gonna get this done. Last week he had a fumble late in the game, and I think he was hungry to kind of prove himself that, hey, I gotta be better. And all week I could just see it in his eyes. I think he's gonna have a big game. And there was no quit. Even when we were down by 2 touchdowns coming back, I felt like our guys were locked in on. They felt like we still had some answers. We just weren't quite executing. And once we started executing and having some success, I felt like then when they saw the defense get some stops, and I thought momentum starting to shift at that point.
You brought up Tate and his running, and we named him the Manhattan Record Player of the Game because of that effort, especially because of the fact that you put it on his legs on almost every play late. But that also doesn't happen without great blocking up front.
Oh, absolutely. Our line was, towards the end, they were just like, hey, coach, let's just run the same play over and over. And he had that confidence. It's pretty good. And, I think there's something to be said for that. I think our guys are bought in on playing 4 quarters, regardless of score, and that paid off for us tonight.
That it did. And what did you see that allowed you to say, yeah, that's the play that's going to work, that's the one that we can keep hammering at them?
We saw it on film, but our linemen were telling us, Coach, run this. And then they were giving the do it again call. So I think it was them seeing it and having the confidence, and obviously they had confidence in Tate as well.
You also get a couple of plays, and I noted this on the broadcast. You don't win a game like this without a couple of lucky plays that happen as well. One was in your own end, or backed up in the end zone, and Logan had to recover the ball and make something out of a play when you're backed up and 97 yards from the end zone. Absolutely. He was able to recover, turn it into something. The other literally was the play that took place just before the field goal, the errant snap. And yet Logan, as well as Tate, had the ability and the mindset to be able to keep something going.
Absolutely. I mean, when that happens, you're kind of in a scramble mode, but they didn't freak out. They just, stayed the course, and that's the competitors that they are. They compete. They compete, and they don't stop. So I think that's part of why they are successful, is because things aren't always going to go as planned. But when you improvise, I mean, you see it on Sundays with Patrick Mahomes all the time. Playmaker, right? Hey, something doesn't go right, I'm going to still make a play out of it. And those guys are always looking.
What a night. You get a 50-yard touchdown pass that goes against you. You get a 40 that goes against you. You get a kickoff return for a score for you. And it seemed like it was just big play and big hits all night.
Oh, big hits. I mean, a very physical game. We have some injuries. They have some injuries. And you couldn't spell it out better for us. I mean, Brody Graber, senior, was able to come in and hit a big one, and he's a kicker, so he practices for this all the time, and this is his moment to shine, and he executed it.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Troy. Appreciate it.
That was fun.
Hey, that was fun.
Troy put it perfectly there. That was fun for sure. Wamego wins it 31-28, and they are now 3-1 on the season. Bueller is next on the schedule, followed by Chapman, Clay Center, and Abilene to wrap up the regular season. We'll see, of course, Wamego more down the road this season, and hey, you have to think after a win last night, they're going to be making a very deep run. How about Marysville? The Bulldogs are looking very good right now. Shut out Concordia last night 24-0 as they finished their 3-game homestand with a 3-0 record. But they got a tough test now with 3 of their remaining 4 games on the road. Abilene on the road next week. Their final home game will be against Rock Creek, then Chapman, and then Clay Center on the road to wrap up the regular season. Clay Center, meanwhile, they're 2-0 in league play on the season, despite being 2-2 overall. They take down Chapman in a road tilt last night. Mark Henry's team now 2-2 after a 42-26 victory. They have Rock Creek on the road next week, a big ball game in that contest. And speaking of the Mustangs of Rock Creek, we'll be talking to Shane Sieben probably a little bit down the road. They're 3-1. They were able to down Abilene 42-6 last night. And, of course, Clay Center is next on the docket. Rock Creek sitting at 1-1 in league play, 3-1 overall. And right now, the Centennial League, really, it's really a three-way mat run at the top, but Rock Creek is definitely in there to keep an eye on. Both Marysville and Clay Center 2-0 in league play. Wamego 2-1. Rock Creek is 1-1. But if you look at Clay Center's overall record, they're 2-2. But again, that league record is the key. It doesn't matter how you do out of league play, it's how you do in the league play. And I know that seems like a stupid thing to say, and it sounded like a stupid thing to say because everybody knows that. But Clay Center and Marysville right now tied at the top, and it's going to be a very tight North Central Kansas League as we get into the latter stages of the season. When we come back, we head out east to the Big East League to see what happened in the games last evening. Also take a quick look at our rankings out of the media poll for week number 4. It's all coming your way next on Scoreboard Saturday, brought to you by WTC Communications.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Other realtors have vacant homes. At Pest Properties, ours come occupied and ready to invest. Looking to relocate your larvae? Try the Petrie Residence. This rustic home features thousands of crevices to squirm in through, vaulted ceilings for our wall crawlers, and an outdoor bird bath teeming with mosquito eggs. So kick up your 6 hairy legs and sign today.
Before pests move in, Terminix it. With over 95 years of experience, we'll help keep your home off the pest market. Visit Terminix.com today.
Scoreboard Saturday News Radio, KMAN. AJ Shaw with you here once more as we're 34 minutes past the top of the hour. Of course, we are just about 26 from the beginning, I should say. I was going to say beginning and then starting, and that's where Bestarting got formed. It's early, folks. Give me a little bit of a break. I'm not usually up this early on a Saturday morning. I'm up usually this early on weekday mornings doing K-Man's Morning News with Troy Coverdale, but not on weekends, so give me a little break. Also, it was a long week for me. I was covering, as some of you may know, I was covering a lengthy jury trial. So, yeah, long days indeed for me. But that's over with now, and we're back into the high school football scene. Now heading out east to the Big East League. We'll start it off with the Riley County Falcons, and unfortunately for the Falcons, it did not go well for them last night in Council Grove. We talked about kind of the surprise that this team was bringing us the first 3 weeks. Well, not so much last night in Council Grove. A 34-13 loss for Eric Williman's team as they fall to 0-1 in district play, 3-1 overall. Fortunately for them, no loss in conference play because Council Grove is not a league team. They have St. Mary's coming up next. And speaking of the St. Mary's Bears, we've been talking about how much of a surprise they've been early in the season, but Silver Lake kind of put a bit of a spoil to them last evening. 26-20 the loss as Clayton Marple's team falls to 3-1. But that's going to be a good game next week in Riley as the Falcons and Bears will do battle. A couple of 2A teams right there, but really have been surprised, even with the loss last night, by the way St. Mary's has come out of the gate this season. And really, when they took down Rossville on the road 2 weeks ago, that to me was really kind of a whoa. St. Mary's is looking pretty darn good right out of the gate. And, folks, I have to say this. They are definitely a team to be reckoned with. They're a very good team. Nemaha Central, one of the top teams in the state of Kansas, they've won 3 in a row. A 13-7, very low-scoring contest last night at Chanute as they go to 3-1 on the season. And they have Oskaloosa on their schedule next before Probably one of the most intense rivalries in the state of Kansas coming up 2 weeks from last night in Sabetha, 2 weeks from now, October the 11th, in a game that is going to be very, very intense. Speaking of the Blue Jays of Sabetha, they down Royal Valley last night by a score of 7-6. What's up with all these low-scoring games? I thought we were done with the low-scoring games. You look at Sabetha's games this year. Take out the game against Hiawatha last week that they won 35-0. 7-6 winner over Holton in the first week of the season. 12-9 loss to Perry Lecompton in week 2. And a 7-6 win over Royal Valley last evening. That is crazy how low-scoring some of these games have been. How about Brooks Barda's Holton Wildcats? They've won 2 in a row after an 0-2 start. They take down Perry Lecompton in a home contest last night, 33-14. So they are at 2-2 for the season, 2-2 in Big East League play, and a conference battle with Jeff West next week. Jefferson West is struggling, unfortunately. They've only scored a combined 16 points through the first 4 games. A 21-0 loser to Hiawatha last night. Hiawatha's had its own problems scoring. And Hiawatha shuts out David Bowen's Jefferson West Tigers. A contest with Holton next week is on the docket for the Tigers. But things are not looking very good out in Meriden right now as they are 0-4. Rossville, on the other hand, we talked about how they've been a bit of a struggle. They were able to beat a Marantha Academy team. Marantha Academy doesn't have a team, so that was a forfeit. Rossville ends up winning last night, so they get their first win of the season. But Derek Hamas's team right now is not looking very sharp. A 1-3 record so far on the season. Mission Valley on the road next. Rossville's got to win. They got to get into the postseason. They want to win games. And right now there's a lot of concern of what is going on out in Rossville. We mentioned Royal Valley, of course. They're 2-2. They lost to Sabetha last night. Perry Lecompton is on the docket next for them. But the Big East League is not, the Big East League it's not surprising to see the Big East League competitive right now and a lot of teams at the top and really in the middle that could be a threat. Right now it's a tie at the top between 5 teams. Nemaha Central and Riley County, 2-0. They have the top spots. Followed by Sabetha, Silver Lake, and St. Mary's, all 3-1. Holton and Royal Valley, 2-2. These are all league schedules, by the way, folks. Hiawatha's 1-2. Perry Lecompton, 1-3. Rossville, 0-3. And Jeff West, 0-4. The fact that Rossville doesn't have a league win yet shows you how competitive and dangerous this league is. When you add teams out of the old Big 7 and you add some of the powerhouses that we saw in the old Mid-East League, that's a darn good league right there. That reminds me a lot of the Big 12. And we always love to say the Centennial League's like the Big 12 in basketball. I would say it's a lot like the Big 12 in general out in the Big East League. And boy, folks, yeah, it's going to be a very fun year. And shout out to Riley County, even though they lose last night to Silver Lake. Or, pardon me, they didn't lose to Silver Lake. Even though they lost last night to Council Grove. They have Silver Lake coming up in a couple of weeks. That's where I got my confusion at. Again, it's early. I apologize, folks. Council Grove, Riley County's 3-1, and they're playing some good football right now. They've won a couple of real tough games, had to go and beat a Holton team that's very talented, had to beat a solid Chapman team, the Fighting Irish. This is going to be a very interesting drive to the finish for the Riley County Falcons and Eric Williman, but they've been there before. This is a freshman class he came in with, a senior class this year, obviously. They were freshmen when he came in. But, folks, it is going to be a very, and I've said this now 6 times, I feel like, a very tight run to the finish in the Big East League. Let's take a quick look at the Week 4 media rankings. We'll go 6A through 3A, and then later on we'll get 2A through 8-man 2. We'll start off in 6A. Derby remains at the top for last week at 3-0 for the season. Gardner Edgerton 2, Manhattan 3. Manhattan bumped up 1 spot from Week 3. Blue Valley Northwest up 1 spot from Week 3. They're at 4th. Wichita Northwest is at 5. Olathe East is at 6th. Lawrence fell back 4 spots. They are in 7th this week. Blue Valley West joining the rankings this week. They were not ranked last week. Lawrence Free State is 1-2. They dropped 2 spots. And Topeka High, they stick at 10. I'm a little surprised Topeka High didn't jump Lawrence Free State, even with Free State being 1-2. In fact, I haven't taken a look yet. Did Free State win last night? I did not see if Free State won last night. Let me go quickly into 6A. Come on, this computer can be slow at times. Did Free State win last evening is the question. They're 1-2 on the season. They're at 9 right now in the rankings, and they did win last night. They beat Olathe Northwest, but Topeka High should be up there. I mean, I don't understand why Topeka High would be below Lawrence Free State. Okay, tougher games, fine, but I think they should be a little bit higher. And the Trojans, again, they are the surprise of 6A right now. We've talked about kind of how Rossville's struggling has been a surprise. Topeka High being really good has definitely been a surprise. Wichita East getting the most votes to not be in the RENIA ranking this week for 6A. They check in at with 12 votes, so really weren't getting anywhere into the rankings. As for 5A Mill Valley, they're still at the top. Even with the 2-1 record, St. Thomas Aquinas did receive 5 votes for first place, but they stick in second, up 1 spot from last week as Blue Valley drops back a spot. They're in third. Great Bend staying at 4. Goddard Eisenhower at 5. Mays South is at 6th. DeSoto 7th. Baser Linwood coming in at 8. They're up 1 spot. And Blue Valley Southwest bumps up a slot this week. Meanwhile, St. James Academy drops to 10. They're back 2 spots from last week. Liberal was the closest to receiving votes at 9 to be in the media rankings. As for 4A, Andover Central sitting at the top with Cape and Mount Carmel at 2. Lewisburg up 3 spots in the rankings, while Chanute bumps up 3 as well. Bishop Miege 0-3 for the season, and I didn't get a chance to see if Bishop Miege were winners last night. We'll get you that here in just a second. They dropped back 2 spots in the rankings. They did receive a vote for first place, even with the 0-3 record on the season. But let's take a quick look and see if Bishop Miege did win last night. They did not. They lose to a team out of Missouri, Rockhurst, 20-3. So Bishop Miege, folks, is 0-4 to start the season. John Holmes' team, the Stags, 0-4 to start the season. This is definitely a bit of a surprise. This was a team that went 8-2 last year, and right now they are struggling. They're on the struggle bus. Buhler coming in at 6. Wellington's up a spot at 7. Wamego dropped down 3 spots from last week. Have to think they're going to go up a little bit, especially with Bishop Miege losing following that big win over Topeka Hayden. Ottawa and Fort Scott, not in the rankings last week, both 3-0 for the season. They check in at 9-10 on the rankings. Finally, we'll go into 3A before we take our final break here for the hour. Andale coming in at 1. Topeka Hayden checks in at 2. They're up 1 spot from last week. Cheney dropped back 1 spot, but both Topeka Hayden and Andale get 3 first-place votes. Andale gets 7. Wichita Collegiate 4. Marysville 5. Frontnick coming in at 6. They drop back 1 spot. Marysville's up 2, by the way, in the rankings from last week. Pratt up 1. Scott City bounces back 2 down to 8. Heston sticking at 9. And Wellsville joining the rankings this week at 10. Rock Creek the closest to getting votes in 3A, followed by Clay Center. Rock Creek only 3 votes out of the ranking. Wonder if they'll be back in the rankings next week. Again, no change at the top. Everybody's staying that was at the top last week, staying at number 1, but some bounces in the middle at the 2, 3, and 4 levels for us. We'll take our final break here on Scoreboard Saturday. When we come back, we head to the Twin Valley League. Did Axel keep their winning streak alive? Do they make it to 43? How about Blue Valley Randolph and Frankfort? We'll have that coming for you next here on Scoreboard Saturday, brought to you by WTC Communications. Unfortunately, we will not hear from the ever-talented Kim Commando this weekend because of K-State football. Power Cat Game Day coming up in exactly, give it a few seconds here, 9 minutes from now. Mitch Fortner, our wonderful, wonderful sports director and the voice of Bill Snyder Family Stadium on the call. Tim Everson, the incredibly talented sports editor for the Manhattan Mercury. The one and only Mason Voth from K-State Online, a.k.a. the Stumper of the Shaw. And Dr. Zach Nemechek, former K-State fullback, will have it for you from 7 to 9. Network coverage gets you started at 9 with the great Wyatt Thompson, Stan Weber, and Matt Walters. Kick starts at 11:07 today, 7 minutes past the top of the 11 o'clock hour. Royals, of course, have a late afternoon tilt today in Atlanta. They take on the Braves. And let me just say this. Congratulations to the Kansas City Royals. 106 losses last year, and they're in the postseason the following season. Incredible. Incredible for Matt Quatraro. Manager of the year? If A.J. Hinch wasn't doing what he was doing in Detroit right now, I'd probably say yeah. Yeah, Matt Quatraro, darn good work, sir. Very, very, very impressive stuff by the Kansas City Royals, and they are postseason bound for the first time since the glorious year of 2015, when they, of course, as you all know, won it all, won the World Series, and took home their second title. Took home their second title in franchise history. Pretty amazing stuff from the Kansas City Royals. Of course, the Tigers are in. The Twins are out. Who would have thought a month ago that Minnesota wouldn't have made the playoffs? I sure as heck didn't think they would have missed the playoffs, but they did. And the Tigers are in. Royals are in. NL wildcard still being kind of determined. I believe the Mets lost last night. I went to bed rather early, so did not see if they won or not. All right, let's head into the Twin Valley League really quick in the final few moments we have together here on this Saturday. We'll start off with Frankfort. We, of course, spoke to their head coach, Nick Anderson, last week. We'll try to talk to him down the road this season. And Frankfort losing their first game of the season at Hanover, a 28-22 defeat. This was a Frankfort team that put up 70-plus points in their first 3 games of the season. But they have a test with Hanover last night, and they go down to defeat. So they sit at 3-1. They have a non-league battle with Thunder Ridge next week. That will be happening on October 4th. Blue Valley Randolph, the Rams, unfortunately, their undefeated stretch has come to an end. They get blown out by an Axtell Eagle team that has now won 43 consecutive games. That's the longest win streak in the entire state of Kansas. Axtell downs Blue Valley Randolph 64-8 last night, as Quentin Craven's team now 3-1. And speaking of Hanover, they will take on Hanover next week at home, but the Rams sitting at 3-1 for the season. How about Clifton Clyde? They sit at 2-2 for the year following their 56-6 victory over Lakeside Downs. Russ Steinbrock's team was 0-2 to start the year, blowout losses to Frankfort and Hanover, but they shut out Lynn last week 46-0, and then they downed Lakeside Downs last night. No pun intended right there. They take on Washington County at home next week, and a home contest is mentioned as they look to go to 3-2 and 2-2 in league play. Speaking of the Lynn Bulldogs, they get their first win of the young season, really kind of the middle part of the season. They down a Thunder Ridge team, 39-16. They got Beloit St. John's Tipton on the docket next week, as Trevor Kuhlman's team sitting at 1-3 for the season. Speaking of Washington County, who Clifton Clyde will see next week, they're 0-4. Jason Ham's team falling by a 50-0 contest. They haven't scored since the first game of the season against Blue Valley Randolph. Shut out 70-0 2 weeks ago to Axtell, 52-0 to Hanover last week, and 50-0 last night to Lincoln. And Clifton Clyde, as mentioned, is on the docket next for them, as things not looking very good for Washington County. They're the only winless team in 8-man play out in the Twin Valley League. Of course, 2 other teams playing 11-man football. Of course, we have Centralia, who is one of those teams. They're sitting at 3-1. 2 consecutive wins for them. They downed Donovan West last night, 58-14. Centralia, 3-0 in Twin Valley League play with wins over Valley Heights, Onega, and Donovan West. Speaking of Valley Heights, they're 3-1 on the season, 2-1 in league play because of that loss that they had to Centralia, but they've won 3 in a row. Cody Trimble's team, a 32-16 winner over Sacred Heart last evening. They have a road tilt with Bennington next week, and then they'll play Harrington and then Republic County and Marion to wrap up the regular season. Really quickly, want to just dive through the media rankings here for 2A, 1A, and the both 8-man leagues. Norton remaining at the top along with Conway Springs in 2A and 1A. Hoxie I got that name right for the gentleman who texted us a few weeks back, hopefully. They are number 1. They got all the first place. Well, they got a few. West Elk got a couple of first place votes, but Hoxie stays at 1 and 8-man 1. Axtell, no surprise, they're number 1 and 8-man 2. They've been there, I feel like, for a billion years at this point. Southeast of Saline, 2nd in 2A. St. Mary's is 3rd. St. Mary's is going to go up at some point this season. Nemaha Central 4th. Osage City 5th. Silver Lake up 1 spot at 6. Council Grove up 1 spot at 7. Riley County, I hope they don't fall out, but they probably will. They were up 1 spot from last week. Beloit is at 9. Humboldt is at 10 in 2A. Conway Springs, Sedgwick, Medicine Lodge, Jackson Heights, Mound Ridge. No change in the top 5 in 1A. However, Marion bumps up 2 with St. Mary's Colgan down 1 spot. Rossville's probably going to fall out. They're 0-3. They're down a spot from last week. Centralia at 9th. Olpe was not ranked. They're in at 10 this week. I mentioned Hoxie is number 1 and an 8-man 1. Little River at 2. West Elk up 1 spot at 3. Wichita County 4. South Central 5. Sylvan Lucas Unified is still at 6. El Saline's up 1 spot at 7. St. Francis 8. Hill City 9. And Ellis is 10th. Frankfort will probably drop back a little bit after their loss last night. Victoria comes in at 3. Burlingame 4. Hanover's going to go up. They're at 5. Dighton at 6. Hodgman County's up 2 spots this week. Labo sticks at 8. Mineola drops down 2 despite being unbeaten. They're at 9. And Buckland checks in at 10 for the season. Really want to thank, of course, WTC Communications, our great sponsor of this program for many years. WTC, keeping you connected with the fastest fiber network, internet speeds. Get your home or business in the game with WTC online at WTCKS.com. Again, really want to also thank Mitch Fortner, Cole Dutchendorf, Troy Coverdale, of course, head coaches Joe Schartz and Weston Moody from Manhattan and Wamego High Schools. Of course, we'll be back next week at our regular time, 8 a.m., as K-State football is not on the docket. It's an off week for the Cats. Let's get it done against the Pokes today. Let's bounce back from the BYU debacle of a game that was. Kind of glad that I slept through most of it because that game stunk to high heaven. That game it flat out stunk. It's like what Kobe said, they wet the bed. It was a nice big one. And K-State, they have to come out and they have to play big next week. They have to come out and have a big game, today against Oklahoma State. Beautiful weather on the docket. Of course, Royals a little bit later tonight. If we have time, we'll probably check in with them after K-State comes to a conclusion. They're going to the postseason, folks. And, of course, then football action tomorrow. Chiefs and Chargers pregame at 2, and then Sunday Night Football later on in the evening. I'll see you, of course, next week for Scoreboard, as mentioned, at 8 a.m. We'll have all the scores, interviews, standings, and everything that we usually have for you on Saturdays. Enjoy your K-State game day coverage. Of course, go Cats, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.